Thank
Feel
you.
free to
Dan.
have a seat if you'd like, sir.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, dear.
Whoop, whoop. I'm willing to take any kind of question you've got, no matter how personal. Okay.
Oh, my.
All right. I'll try
You
to make
wanna-
it short.
Kick it off and start with the audience? All
Sure.
right. Hi, tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Bria.
Hi, Freya.
Bria. Sorry, I met you yesterday.
Bria, then.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
My question is, with Deep Space Nine, your character was really, really super duper funny. So did you have a background in comedic acting, and also what was the audition process like?
Oh, that's a great question, Bria. Yes, I had a background in comedic acting. I spent most of my life as a theater actor playing comedic roles, so I had a lot of background in that. As you and many of you know, I also had a background in playing Ferengi. I had played a Ferengi on Next Generation. I did miserably. It was one of the worst performances I ever gave, and Deep Space Nine for me was 7 years trying to correct that mistake. What was the audition process like? This is a little bit of a long story. I'll make it as short as I can. So, I had played a Ferengi before, and I heard that they were looking for a Ferengi on Deep Space Nine. So I said to my agent, you should submit me, and they said, yes, we'll do that. And they did, and I had an audition, and that was probably sometime in late May. And I called my agent a couple of days later and said, is there any feedback on my progressing to the next step? And they called, and they said, we can't get any feedback. And I kept calling my agent for about 6 weeks, saying, is there any feedback? Is there any feedback? Is there any feedback? And I always got the same answer. They're not giving us any response whatsoever, none. And then after about 6 weeks, the agent called, good news, you have a callback. You have to go to Paramount and meet with what we call the suits. And I went in and got a laugh on, I love a woman in uniform. And I met at that audition a man named Max Kredenchek. And for those of you who don't know, oh, thank you, yes. Max played Rom for 7 years right next to me, that idiot. And I would say a week later, they said, you have one more audition. And I went back expecting, and Max and I actually bonded at that audition that I was just telling you about. And both of us were up for Quark. And I asked him what was his approach to Quark. He said, well, he played a Ferengi before. I said, I knew that. And he said, I approached it comedically. And he said, how did you approach Quark? I said, I approached it dramatically. I see him as a dramatic character, not as a comedic character. And so we talked for about 45 minutes and had the beginning of a very long, wonderful friendship. A week later, they called me back, and I expected to see Max there, but he wasn't there. There was a tall, thin guy named Aubergenois, and a dark-haired lady named Visitor, and there was no short actors there. And I thought, this is good. I'm the only short actor here, and I know the Ferengi have to be short. And lo and behold, the 8 of us who were sitting there that day were Berman's first choice for the show, and all of us became the series regulars. The only person who wasn't there was Terry. Terry wasn't there because they hadn't found her yet. We actually were shooting about a week, I think, before they cast Terry. So that was the audition process.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Bria.
Great, good question. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Kat.
Hi.
I was just wondering, I heard another interview, Michael Dorn talking about how his biggest, the thing that holds him back the most from wanting to go be Worf again is the makeup. So I was wondering how your experience compared to that, if you know whose makeup took longer or was more involved, yours or his.
Michael's makeup was nothing compared to mine. And mine was nothing compared to Gul Dukat's. It's really, Worf's makeup was nursery school time. If that makeup bothered Michael, then he's a panty waist. I remember one day the Avery and Cullum were being made into Cardassians, and they were moaning and groaning about this makeup they had to wear. And both Michael Dorn and I sat there with arms akimbo across our chests going, what are you complaining about? This is one episode you have to do. We've been doing this for 7 years. But no, mine was much worse. With all due respect to my good friend Michael, who was the last person I saw in Los Angeles before I got on the plane, he was at my house visiting. My wife left, she went to work, and I was still talking to Michael. So I love Michael, he's a good friend. But I don't think it's the makeup that stops him, no.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Sebastian. I met you on Friday at your table.
Yes, Sebastian?
So I'm from the Orange County, New York. So I will try to make this as concise as I can. So I do background acting for a living, for TV shows and movies, and I've been privileged to be on, if this makes sense, different kinds of sets. Different sets where it was all rehearsal, no changes. I've been on sets that were more
Improvised.
Experimental, and I've been on sets where the crew were complete buffoons and had no idea what they were doing. So,
Like crew, you mean the actors or the crew?
the actual crew themselves.
No, the crew didn't know what they were doing.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that makes for long days.
But anyways, and prior to meeting you, I watched a few Q&As, and you gave wonderful insight on working on different shows other than Deep Space Nine, one of them being Seinfeld. But anyways, so my question to you is, what is it that makes a set work? Is it communication? Is it experimentation? Is it, and no, not paycheck.
Paychecks help. What makes a set work? The tone of a set, as I told you, I think that day, Sebastian, is set by what we call number one on the call sheet. So that means the lead actor in the TV show, number one, sets the tone. However that person's persona is, character is, not the character they play, but their own personal character. That sets the tone, and everything on the set is dictated by that person's personality. So if number one on the call sheet wants to fool around, then everybody fools around, and that, for me as a guest on that set, is not good. I'm not there to fool around. I'm there to do my work and to give you the best performance I can give, and make your show better because you chose me to play one of your characters. So that's what sets the tone, and I think I've started to explain. If a show has been together for a long period of time, everything works right. The crew knows what they're doing. The actors know what they're playing. The directors know what they're doing. And so that makes for an easier time of it. When people are trying to figure it out and scratching their heads, makes for a rather long day. For those of you who don't know this, my regular day on Deep Space Nine was about 16 hours. That's 16 hours every day that I worked. And some days longer. I think the longest I had was 22 hours. So that's 22 hours in a rubber head. Can be problematic. Did that answer your question, Sebastian?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Hi, tell us your name.
Hello, I'm Lauren.
Hello, Lauren.
My question for you is, what is your favorite Star Trek species?
I think that would be easy. Humans.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, feel free to go ahead and tilt that all the way down at you. There you go. Hi, what's your name?
My name is Mackenzie, and who is your favorite Starfleet captain?
Who is my favorite Starfleet captain? Well, I don't like any of them. But I obviously, the person who I spent so much time with and who I respect a great deal and whose work inspired all of us, that would be Avery Brooks. But I'd also have to put out that Scott Bakula is an old friend of mine. We've been friends long before either one of us was on Star Trek. So in a second choice would be Scott Bakula.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Erin. My question's pretty quick. Who do you think loved Jadzia more, Quark or Worf?
There's no question that Quark loved her more than Worf.
I agree.
I'm not sure Terry would like that answer, but I always hoped that there would be some relationship between Quark and besides playing Dabo or playing cards with her, but that didn't happen. Okay.
I'm Allison.
Hello, Allison.
My question, what is your favorite rule of acquisition?
It has to be the first one, which is the first one I memorized. Once you have their money, it helps in conventions, it really does. Once you have their money, never give it back.
Exactly.
Hello, my name is Charmella. Thank you for being here.
Sure.
My question is, what is your favorite Ferengi role? Like, what was your favorite moment as a Ferengi?
First of all, only Dorn calls us Ferengi. We are Ferengi. My favorite moment as a Ferengi. That's difficult. That's a difficult question.
Okay.
There were so many wonderful moments with wonderful people that I guess it's not really my favorite Ferengi moment, although it is. It was the moment that I was standing on stage doing, not the character of Hamlet, but doing the play Hamlet, and the stage manager said to me, "There's a message from your wife." And I said, what did she say? She said, "You got the part." I think that was my favorite moment. Probably, again, because it's nostalgic and because it meant a lot to me at the time, it was the scene that I have in the first episode of Deep Space Nine, where Nana Visitor has just taken me by the throat and told me, "If you ever do that again, I'll rip out something." And she walks away, and in a voice that I only used for the first episode, in a voice I only used in the first episode, I went, "I love a woman in uniform." And the reason I only used it once is I did the whole episode like this, because this is the voice I used when I did Next Generation, and this is the voice I used when I auditioned. And Rick called me into his office and said, "We love everything you're doing, lose the voice." And so from then on, I had the teeth, of course, but it's my voice with the teeth as opposed to that sort of gravelly voice that I used in Next Generation.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Hi, what's your name?
Maggie.
Hello, Maggie. What's your question, Maggie?
How hard was it to find the batless with your makeup on?
That's a very good question, Maggie. How hard was it to fight with the batleth when I had my makeup on? It wasn't that hard. They're got me on camera. Okay. Dan Curry, who created the batleth, Maggie, a wonderful man. He designed all the ships. He made the stars shine. He designed some of the sets. Brilliant man, Dan Curry. He took 3 days and taught me how to use the batleth to fight with. And so in the scenes where Quark is fighting with a batleth, that's not my stunt double, George. That's me fighting with the batleth. And so it wasn't difficult because Dan took the time to teach me how to use it correctly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. What's your name?
Desmond.
Desmond. My name's Armin. This is what we did in Star Trek 2. If you didn't know the lines, somebody cued you.
I know the line. Was your costume comfortable?
Say that again in English.
Was your costume comfortable?
Oh, was my costume comfortable? I have a very long answer for you. No. It was 3 layers of couch material. But they were beautiful, weren't they? Yeah, they were beautiful costumes. And my mother-in-law told my wife many years ago, beauty must be pinched. So in order for me to be beautiful as Quark, I had to wear hard costumes and hard makeup. Thank you, Desmond.
You're welcome.
Well, all of you who are asking me a question, I'm enjoying the questions, but if you can keep the word favorite out, that would be good.
I just wanted to know, will you be going back to your booth afterwards?
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
I've been a Star Trek fan all my life, and loved all the Star Trek, including Space Nine with you guys.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry. You're good. Yeah, just pop it right back in the thing.
My name is Sydney, and I met you on Friday, but I'm afraid I'm leaning more towards Buffy the Vampire Slayer. What was your favorite? I'm sorry, not favorite, but what was it like being on Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Great, thank you. For those of you who are not familiar with my background, I've done maybe 80 different TV shows. God knows how many voiceovers for games and cartoons. So Buffy is perhaps what I'm second known for. I think when they bury me, it's either going to say Quark or Snyder on there. By the way, Quark has no last name. Snyder has no first name. What was it like being on Buffy? Well, relief. I didn't have to be in makeup. Two, no matter what you thought of either of my characters, this is what I thought. I always thought that Quark was a people person. He liked people. He liked to talk to people. He liked to interact with people. He often liked to take their money as well. But he was a people person. Snyder was an anti-people person. He didn't like humanity, and he liked rules, and he wanted everything to be just so. So for an actor, it was a delight. For those of you who don't know this, I was doing Buffy and Star Trek at the same time. Sometimes in the 1 week, I would do both shows. So it was a delight to play two radically different characters in 1 week. It stretched my ability as an artist, and it enabled me to go into areas that Quark, for instance, Snyder would allow me to go into areas that Quark would never go into, and vice versa. It made me, I felt, a much more rounded performer because I got the opportunity. It was not boxed in one part every week. The people at Paramount were enormously kind about letting me do various shows, even though my contract said I couldn't.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, Mr. Armin.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
My name's Amanda.
Hello, Amanda. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Amanda will be at my booth too, by the way.
If you haven't seen me, I've been here all weekend. I was just wondering, because I'm sure, like most people in the room, I found Quark comedic relief on DS9, and you said that you played him more dramatically. Mm-hmm. How did you find that? How did you find the comedy in your dramatic portrayal of the character?
Thank you, Amanda. I've played comic characters all my life. I've never, ever thought of them as comic. They have a point of view, they have a desire, they have an intention. You understand what I'm saying when I say intention.
I do.
I know you do. And so in order to play that intention, you have to be very serious about the intention. Does it turn out to be comic? Yes, if you want that intention a little too much. But if you don't have a dramatic attachment to what you're doing, it's not funny, it's just shtick. And I don't like doing shtick. I like playing what appears to be the comic side of human nature.
Thank you, Mr. Armin.
You're welcome.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Amy.
Hello, Amy.
Hi. How much creative license did you have in building the rules of acquisition and the Ferengi culture?
I think it was Derek. Was the young man who asked me the question about the costume named Derek? Darren? Devin. Thank you. The answer is the same. None.
None?
We did exactly what the writers... If we did not get the words letter perfect, then we did it again. It had to be letter perfect. The best sound you could hear was after you did a take, and it happened every day that we worked, all of us. You would turn to Judy Brown, who was the script coordinator, and if you looked at her, and if she said to you, DLP, lovey, then we knew that we had done it dead letter perfect, DLP.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Are you satisfied with the Ferengi culture that they built?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because you know what? The Ferengi were the most human characters on Star Trek. You may not agree with me, but the Ferengi were the most human. You greeting, grasping, take a look at yourselves. We weren't volunteering for suicide missions every other day. That's not human.
Hi, my name is Nancy.
Hello,
it's
Nancy.
wonderful to meet you. I was wondering, kind of my question involves what you just responded. I was wondering if there was any part of your playing a Ferengi that translated with you, that you took home with you. Did you start looking at your friends as marks?
Thank you, Nancy. That's an excellent question, and no favorite in there anywhere. Yes. I was, by nature, before I started playing Quark, a very shy, reticent, quiet person. And Quark brought me out of myself. Quark forced me to be more exuberant, more outward focused, and I took that home with me. Anything else, I left behind.
Thanks. Hi, tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Toby.
Hello, Toby.
Hello. We applaud your versatility in the roles you played over the years. My question would be, what was your catalyst for getting involved with the Atlas Shrugged project, and what was that like to work on?
Sure. As many of you know, I am the voice of Andrew Ryan in BioShock. And that's an Ayn Rand novel. So I wanted to do something in the Ayn Rand universe that wasn't BioShock. I had read a lot of Ayn Rand's novels when I was a young man, and Ayn Rand is a perfect novelist for a young person. As you get older, you go, that doesn't work. So, but I wanted to do it. Unfortunately, the film never lived up to its expectations, and I only had very little to do in it, but at least I got to do something that was Ayn Rand oriented. So that was my desire to do it. And also, the casting lady, who was an old friend of mine, said, I know it's a really small part, Armin, would you mind doing it for my sake? And as I wanted to do an Ayn Rand piece, but I also wanted to do it to help her out, so I said yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, hello, sir. My name is John. Deep Space Nine actually introduced me to Star Trek, so thank you for all that you did, you and the entire cast. One episode that really struck with me and was powerful, it was Far Beyond the Stars. Can you tell us about your experience doing that episode?
Sure. Far Beyond the Stars is, when people ask me what was my favorite, that is my favorite, Far Beyond the Stars. For those of you who don't know exactly what that episode is, it's this episode of Deep Space Nine where the cast goes, I shouldn't say the cast. The episode takes place in the 50s, and it's about a black writer named Benji who can't get his novel published because he's a black writer. The episode is about racism. The episode is about being left out. He wants to write a novel that I don't know if it's called Deep Space Nine, but all the characters that he wants to write about in his novel are Deep Space Nine characters. He's butting the establishment, which just doesn't want to hire black writers for their science fiction journal. I am one of the writers in the office. I'm happy to say that I'm in favor of Benji writing his novels, but Renee, who plays the publisher, is against it. Eventually, he does get but he's looking at some of the writers and sometimes picturing the characters from his novel Deep Space Nine. It is a very there's no ships involved, there's no Starfleet. It is simply about racism, about trying to achieve what you want to achieve. It's about relationships. It's an incredible episode, and if you've never seen Far Beyond the Stars. Watch it because it is some of the best television you will ever see. Not because I was a part of the episode, but really, it is some of the best TV writing, acting, directing. The ideas are wonderful. It is an incredible episode. So it's an easy choice when people ask me, what's my favorite? That's my favorite. It was written by, the idea came from a man named Mark Zickrey. He sold the idea, and then Ira and the rest of the writers took it on and wrote it.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Michael, probably like a third of the audience. There's so many of us. Even at work, my email ends in 10. That's terrible. Anyway, my question has to do with basically my approach to Deep Space Nine. I'm actually still watching it because I never got into it immediately because I know it's going to sound terrible, but I was never really big into TNG, preferring the older Star Trek series. And what really made me want to watch DS9 were I saw some like YouTube clips of some scenes that were separated out of context where they had Quark in particular talking about his experiences with people. Like you were saying earlier, he's more of a people character.
Is it the root beer scene that you saw?
The one in particular I'm thinking about is where he is describing humans as great people until you take away their creature comforts. And that colored my whole perception of the character of Quark in it. So I've never really been watching the show and perceived him as comedic. My question was, how much of that kind of dark, not dark per se, but dark practicality, how much of that is you and how much of that is just the writer and you having to bring it to life?
Certainly it's a collaboration of the two. We've often been called the Dark Series, so that's not a strange word to hear. But we were modeled after a war. The Bosnian War is what inspired Michael and Rick to create our show. So we were birthed out of war, which is a dark period of time in humanity. I tried to help the scripts with my performance. If I added to that darkness, that's what I was supposed to do, and I wanted to do that. And I also tried to lighten it up sometime as comic relief. But it's a combination of the two, Michael. It's an excellent question. We tried to tell, people don't watch us because of that darkness. People they want a lighter sort of Star Trek. God bless them, they're entitled to that. And there's plenty of Star Trek out there that's like that. But we are a much more, forgive me for saying it, I'm very prejudiced, we are a much more adult Star Trek. We are about relationships, about boldly staying in one place.
Thank you very much.
Hi, what's your name?
Hello, Armin. My name is Chad, and
Hi,
I have
Chad.
a pragmatic question for you.
Sure.
As an actor,
2 hours. Yeah, go ahead.
dealing with spending 16 hours on set each day, day after day, week after week, how did you motivate, keep yourself going? Was it like a love of coffee, jumping jacks? Like, how were you physically able to keep going for
I
so
don't know about
long
the
at
others,
such a
but I can
pace?
answer that. It's an excellent question. And I have a simple answer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. All the other shows I did at the time, Stargate and Seinfeld, and they allowed me to go off and do other work. So I went off and did other characters. And so when I came back to work on Deep Space Nine, I was rejuvenated. I wasn't playing the same character day after day because I was going off and doing other characters. So because I was allowed to do that, coming back to my main job, my day job, was more exciting because I had a little relief, even if it was for a couple of days on another show. That's an excellent question. I think a lot of the people, by the time we got to year 7, were ready to leave because they had it. Not they didn't like their characters, of course they liked their characters, but they had done it a long time with no relief like I had. No one else on the show had the ability, for whatever reason, to go and come back as I did.
And what's your take on root beer? Do you like it?
Say again?
And what's your take on root beer? Do you like it?
Oh, you get used to it if you taste it enough. I'll tell you a little story about that very quickly. Okay, very quickly. Andy and I are very close friends. And what I used to do on our show, because the Ferengi were encased in rubber, I would ask all the actors who played Ferengi to come to my house during the weekend and rehearse the scenes in my house before we ever got in front of the camera. And the reason we did that is because we knew that after about hour 9, hour 10, we were so tired and not sick, but being inside a rubber head for 10 hours is a little demanding. And we all knew that we had a 16-hour day. So after hour 10, it was a little like having a head cold, a major head cold. So that we all got together on the weekends, and we would rehearse the scenes in my house, and then we would be a little bit ahead of the curve when we got to hour 10, hour 11, because we had done it in my house and had rehearsed it like a play. So I asked Andy to do that, and he too was encased in rubber, to do that with the root beer scene, with that scene. And we came, and we found that there was more to it than we thought was on the page. And on Monday, when we went to work, James, who was the director, we did the reading of the scene, and he looked at us and he said, "That's not funny." And we said, "We don't think this scene is funny." And he said, "Well, I can't shoot it. I can't shoot it the way you're acting it." Now, I'm a good ensemble player. I never made a stink. The other actors will tell you. I was ready to do whatever they wanted me to do. But this one time in the 7 years, I said, "Well, that's the way we want to do it, and we don't want to do it any other way." And he said, "Well, I can't shoot it that way." He said, "We're going to have to bring the producers down," because they had given him orders that it was a comic scene. And Ira and Robert Hewitt Wolf came down to the set, and they said, "What's the problem?" James says, the actors don't think it's a comic scene, and you told me you want this to be a comic scene. And Ira and Robert said to Andy and I, "Well, can you play it the way we want it?" And we said, "Of course we can." And we did it. And they said, "Now, how do you want to do it?" And we showed them the way we wanted to do it as a much more dramatic scene, comic but dramatic. And Ira took about 20 seconds, conferred with Robert for 10 seconds, turned to James and said, "Shoot it the way Armin wants it." And so the root beer scene is what Andy and I had decided on the weekend before we got in front of the cameras.
Would you share some remembrances of working with Renee Auberjonois and Aaron Eisenberg?
Sure. Thank you for getting their names correct. Renee was one of my closest friends. We had worked together before Deep Space Nine. We had done a play together. We didn't much care for each other doing the play. And so when I got cast as Quark and he was cast as Odo, I thought, this is going to be easy. We're not supposed to like each other. But sitting next to each other in the makeup trailer day after day in the first year, we bonded. I go so far as to say we fell in love with each other. And that love was obvious in our work. And the writers began to be aware of that pretty quickly, and so they began to write for us. And so I believe we had the greatest romance Star Trek has ever seen. There isn't a day go by that I don't mourn the loss of my dear friend. The good news is he was diagnosed 3 years ago with cancer, and they told him he had 6 months to live, and he only passed away last November. So he beat the doctor by 2.5 years, so that's the good news. For Aaron, who was the most joyous person on the set, working with Aaron was like working with a circus full of clowns. It was always smiles and laughter and good times with Aaron. And although he wasn't as young as you thought he was, you all thought he was 13 or 14 when he started the show. He was actually closer to 31. His height was stopped by the fact that he had kidney problems, and probably it's the kidney disease that probably was too much of a strain on his heart. But when it was whereas I knew Renee was going to die, I knew that. I was absolutely gobsmacked when my wife told me that Aaron had passed away. It was utter shock. But both of those people were joys. They were just joys. And I miss them both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron would be so happy that you're clapping for him. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Mike.
Mike? You're right, there are a lot of mics.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, there's so many of us. My question is, why do you think that the episode Business as Usual is considered so underrated?
Say that again.
The episode Business as Usual?
Business as usual.
When Quark is involved in arms dealing.
Yeah.
A lot of people say it's underrated because of the comedic relief. And I was just wondering what it was like filming that.
It was difficult. Not so much the story, but the actor, Stephen Burkoff, who is the guest star. You've all read about problematic actors. Stephen Burkoff, by reputation, is the most problematic. It's 3 days signing my name over and over again. Problematic actor by reputation. So I spent all of that week babysitting Stephen Burkoff, making sure that he didn't explode on the set. But as far as the story and the actual performance, I don't know. It was one of the episodes that I'm very proud of. It's where I got to be much more of a dramatic character. I'm very proud of that, and this is the first time hearing that it's underrated. So please tell everyone to take a second look at it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hello.
Hi, I'm Alicia. One of the parts I really enjoyed was Quark interacting with other Ferengi, particularly the Grand Nagus. And I wondered if you could talk about what it was like working with Wallace Shawn.
Wallace is a phenomenal actor and even greater human being. He, talking about underrated, I don't know if you know this or not, but Wallace Shawn, besides being a very famous character actor, is an enormously famous theater writer. He's a playwright of huge proportions. He's written lots of articles for the New Yorker magazine. In fact, his father was the head of the editorial department of the New Yorker magazine for years and years and years. Wallace attacked the Nagus with gusto, and he was the only actor in my life, except for maybe Harry Groener, that I am intimidated by. He was beyond good. I will tell you a story I probably shouldn't tell.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you anyway. Okay. So I told you before, I'm an ensemble player. I like to be part of the company. I never think of myself as any better than the company. I'm as good as the company is. And I'd heard all my life about stories about stars who got jealous of other actors and had them fired, or had their parts diminished, or did something because they were jealous of the other actor. And I never understood that. Never, ever, ever understood that. If the other actor's good, that makes your performance better. That was my attitude. One day on the set of Deep Space Nine, Wally was there. He was funny on camera. He was funny off camera. He was dear. He was 1,000 things, and everybody was circling him and enjoying him and listening to his every word. And the green-eyed monster of envy attacked me badly. And I'm like, that son of a bitch. This is my show. Where does he get off doing? And for about 4 minutes, I was infected with that. And after about the 4th minute, I went, oh, that's how it happens. I see, because I was enormously jealous of him. But I got over it after 4 minutes, and I only respected him the more. he is. It sounds like I loved everybody I worked with. I didn't. I didn't love everybody I worked with. But Wally was an inspiration, an inspiration. And we asked him once. This has to do with Renee as well. Wally had not been on the show for about 5 months or so, and he was getting made up in the trailer, and Renee and I went into the trailer and were being good hosts, and said, Wally, it's nice to have you back. You know, we love your character. Why don't you show up more on the show? And he said 2 things. The first thing he said was, and I won't do his voice because he begged me not. He doesn't like when people imitate his voice, so I will respect his wishes. It's easy to do his voice, but I won't do it. He said, it takes me 6 months to forget how much I hate the makeup. And then we asked him, so Wally, then why do you come back if you don't like the makeup? And he said to Renee and I, because I love doing a character voice, he said. And we all know Wally's voice. And Renee and I went, okay. And we had to excuse ourselves out of the trailer and get outside as quickly as possible so that we could laugh. Not in his face, of course, but because Wally's voice, like perhaps mine, is more than mine, is enormously unique and wonderful. Yeah.
All right, we do have time for these 2 more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up.
My name is John.
Hello, John.
A lot of Johns also. First off, thank you so much for your participation in the What We Left Behind. That was something that I contributed to and have enjoyed enormously.
Thank you, John.
And my question is, we've heard about a couple of the people from Star Trek that you have relationships with, that you have friendships with. Were there any surprises to you to this day? Are there people that you've connected with or that you have a relationship or a friendship with that you never thought you would have from one of the cast or from specifically your cast?
Well, Renee was a surprise because I really didn't like him when we started working. So that's a surprise. Max, who was my competition for Quark, I equally love. And he was indeed my brother. My real brother, in fact, calls himself Rom. I guess what's a surprise to me, and it's going to sound a little strange, that years after the show is over, I seem to have a very good relationship now with Rick Berman, which I didn't have when I was working. Not that there were negotiations, it's that we just never saw Rick.
Right, sure.
But not trying to elicit sympathy from anybody, but my good wife, Kitty, who was also on the show, did 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine. She's the only one who broke the spouse barrier. None of the other actors had their spouses ever on the show. My wife got very sick with a cancer, and Rick and his wife, Liz, were enormously kind after they found out that she had cancer, and she's recovered from it. And now we are part of the Bermans' lives. The Bermans are part of the Shimermans' lives. So that's a surprise.
Yeah,
that's a surprise. Wow. There are people also on the show that I hope I never see again. So.
And as a parting thing, Quark showed up. The bar showed up last week on Picard. Or 2
So I've
weeks
heard.
ago. You need to be on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Armin. My
Hello.
name is Laura.
Hello, Laura.
And I was wondering, when the Ferengi race was first presented, it was a very base, animalistic.
I apologize for that. I think I've already said that.
a little bit.
Let me say it again. I really apologize for that.
Of course. But did you expect them to go through the very real progress, the progression that they went through, that in some ways, mirrored our hopes for the human race and the ways that we've progressed as well?
Will you say that a different way? Because I'm not quite sure I followed it.
Did you hope and expect for that to happen when you were first cast as Quark?
Yes, that's an excellent question, and that was my hope. I'll tell you another story. I'm full of stories. When I did that first episode of the Ferengi, where I asked Brent, who is an old friend, did any of you... I asked Brent, who I'd known before Star Trek, when I was doing that first Ferengi episode, this data thing, what do you want to do with it? What do you want to do with that? And Brent said, I want to take the character with the least amount of potential and turn it into the character with the most amount of potential. So that was my aspirations and hopes for Quark, who certainly was the character with the least amount of potential. And I hope that I achieved half as much as Brent did, was to make him that. And the writers, God bless them, I think were eager to flesh out all the characters, mine included, and to make it not just a two-dimensional comic character, but a three-dimensional human character. That's why I really do believe the Ferengi are the most human of the characters on the show.
You did an amazing job, truly.
Thank you.
All right, we do have to wrap it up here. Armin, I did want to ask one final question here, and please do leave us with your final thoughts about everything. But you've been working in so many different mediums, and now also having been a writer, what would you say is the most challenging medium that you've worked in?
Writing, you face I'm a novelist. I have 3 novels out. There's a series called Merchant Prince. I have a novel that will be published in October. It was just bought during Christmas, and the first 3 are science fiction novels. This one is a period mystery. But writing is difficult. It's easy as an actor. You start with somebody else's words. You must always remember that. No matter how much you adore the actors, we're only repeating what somebody wrote down, for the most part. So you have that crutch. You have that somebody's spotting you as you're jumping off the horse. But with writing, it's an empty blank page. You understand that? And you have to fill it up with ideas and words and ideas that not only make sense, but are creative as well. It is very difficult to sit by yourself and write. That is a very lonely experience. I've spent my life being part of an ensemble. That means I work with other people, that they inspire me, that I inspire them. It's a collaborative process. Writing is a very solitary process. So of all the things I do, and I do many things, not just acting, but a lot of other things as well, writing is the loneliest and perhaps the hardest.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Can we have one more round of applause for Armin Shimerman, everybody?
Thank you.